I was going to play another song to open, but I just saw this one on Instagram, and I think it's brilliant. So I'll play this to start, and then we'll bring in the.
From here, you're a fucking idiot.
Welcome to the land of heart disease, cancer and obesity. Grab a plate and have a seat. Let me fix you something sweet. Chew on this, it'll get you right. It's got maltodextrin and yellow 5, sucralose, saccharin, TBHQ, MSG, BPA, and PFAs too. And I know that doesn't sound too safe, but it's all approved by the FDA. So stuff your face with the latest, greatest combination of chemical waste and hydrogenated oils. They taste sensational. Just push a button, it shows up at your door. We all come running like kids in a candy store.
Okay, let's get going. I don't know who that guy is, but it's a great song. So here's John Stapleton. Great to see you, John. We've skipped a few weeks, but here we are.
We did skip a few weeks. One reason or another, life gets in the way.
It certainly does. It certainly does. Well, let's bring in our esteemed guest. Now, for those who don't know, this is John Shipton. I don't know how you wouldn't know him. This is Julian Assange's father. But one thing that people don't know is when WikiLeaks set up, the business name, I think, was registered with this man. This man was the man who... Is that true, John?
Yeah, the domain name, yeah.
The domain name was registered under you.
Yeah.
But how have you been? I haven't seen you for ages. I'm going to put you in the middle.
Yeah, ticking over well. Thank you. I moved between Muswellbrook, where my daughter is, and Melbourne. So mostly on the road constantly.
So you're just constantly on the road. How often did you get to see your daughter much and stuff?
Well, the usual difficulties with the family law court, but I have half of the holidays and 2 weekends a month with her. Yeah.
Okay, that's for right now. Well, it's great to see you, man. There's and I was going to call this. At first, I was going to call this in the wake of Julian, but I thought it's not really, because your life is it's quite an incredible life, really. How you've been skidding around the world all these years, and you're still doing it, I think. Is that correct?
Well, I sort of, I mean, at 80 years of age, 24 hours on on an aeroplane is a very unattractive proposition. So that also knocks you around. That people just got to stop traveling after the age of 70. But still, I plan to take a pilgrimage to Minab, where all of those girls were killed by the United States. I think it's
that was bombed.
Yeah, the school. Yes, I think it's essential that we start to make the point that leveraging resources against the murder of children is not on. It's got to finish. In the case of Gaza, in the case of Lebanon, and currently in Iran, we just have to make the point that this can't be done.
You're talking about a. Oh, sorry, you go, John.
So it's clearly being done, though, isn't it? I mean, people are dying.
Yeah. Yes.
More often in war now than ever before, probably. So it seems at the moment, anyway. Everything's escalating.
Yes, but there's the people. We do squabble, but there are excesses that we urge ourselves to prevent. One of them is the murder of children. For if you look at a child, just any child, if you would see from the beginning of time to the end of time personified in that moment as the child walks by you. That is a treasure beyond calculation. When we decline into murdering children in order to pacify their parents, then we have reached a point where there's nihilism. There's nothing for us in the future. So we must do what we can to object. And uh, as we gather together to object, then we have force, we have power.
We have your son, Julian, talked about endless wars, and that's what we seem to be in now. You know, um, the Russian one just goes on and on and on, and now the Israel. It's just everyone's kind of fatigued by it. It's really like being in 1984 with Eurasia and Oceania, who we're at war with now.
Yes,
Now we've
yeah,
got the
yeah.
Iran one, and no one really knows what the fuck's going on. To be honest, you hear all these different. Trump's brilliant. Trump's an idiot. Trump's this. Are you hearing anything more about why we're actually there and why we're doing this?
No, I don't. I have contacts that I've maintained, but as you say, their views and opinions are founded upon intermittent information. There's a few people who are there, who are friends that do podcasts, and one can contact by phone. Um, Again, it seems as though the United States uh, is decided to control the distribution of oil and assert, as they have done for the last 80 years, their control of waterways. Uh, for example, the Suez Canal, 60% of the world's commerce goes through the Suez Canals and the Red Sea. So it's really, if you're a hegemon, it's really important to assert control over that. There'll be competitors and there'll be allies that will want to share control and share in the resources that control generates. But primarily, it'll be the United States empire that sees it has to control those elements.
So Julian spent all those years in jail and detention, basically for exposing the corruption and the malpractice within the US military. And now the whole thing, nothing's changed. We're all back at war, another useless war, idiot war. Does it seem like all that Julian and the family went through was pointless? That
Well, I'll tell you make a good point, and it's a clever question as well as being a good question. So back then, if you take your mind back to 2011, there were people establishing seats in the universities and professorships of transparency, okay, and accountability. Well,
sure.
in the current circumstances, that looks quaint. For we now have complete transparency. We know that tens of thousands of children have been murdered in Gaza. So and there an entire websites, two of them really, that have every video that's been produced by filming those events and the destruction of Gaza. So it's all there, and the accountability. Uh, People just say, "Well, we're going to kill some more," So you get Ben Gavir and Smotrich on TV saying, "Well, we're going to kill more. We're going to drive them all out. So they can go somewhere else. They can go to Egypt." Of course, Egypt, says no. But so there's complete transparency, confessions of crimes that and no accountability whatsoever. 2011. We were all marching in the streets saying, "Yes, the transparency is a requirement." Well, everything's known. It seems now we were naive, and that the desires of 2011 for reforms in accountability and transparency are quaint.
Do you think that the powerful are never going to hand over anything that leaves them with an Achilles heel? Surely. I mean, look what happened with Fauci just the other day, where he pleaded the fifth like 105 times. I mean, is that him defending himself, or is that the powerful putting him up like a sacrificial lamb to say, "Look, we've got to calm these people who are angry about COVID. Just go out there, get your face slapped for 6 hours, and you won't go to jail and everything." It feels like theater to placate the people, but you mix in circles higher up than me. So, what's it like from your angle? What do you think of? Because that's a no accountability there. He won't get in trouble. We see our politicians ripping off people; they don't get in trouble. We see, like you said, deaths everywhere. No one seems to be getting in trouble. It seems to there seems to be very little justice
I,
anywhere. What are your
well,
thoughts, though? I'm further down the line.
well, what I see is the deterioration and nihilism in the West, and the consequence, the West strips bits off itself in order to right itself. So it throws uh, Epstein to the wolves. It
Oh,
throws
Epstein.
Fauci
Epstein's a good
to
one.
yeah, it throws Fauci into the maw of our demand for a sense of justice and accountability, and they'll keep stripping bits off themselves, of how the empire works, and throw those into the maw until they feel that they've satisfied the demands of the populace for change and for accountability. And so, with that in mind, you can see on the horizon, just like a sunrise, dimly rising, you can see that there will be war crimes commissions into the behaviour of the EU and uh, the United States in the uh, construction of the Ukraine war, which has cost about 2.5 million lives. Or you can see that the uh, people who rule Israel will be thrown to the wolves. The empire will do anything necessary to survive, and as it shrinks in its power and reach and uh, confidence, it will take greater bits off itself and throw those into the maw. I mean, I can't use a greater uh, I can't use a more delicate image for the way the empire behaves, because they'll that what was their ambition was to destroy 7 countries in 5 years. Well, it's been a bit more than 5 years, but they've destroyed six, and they're in the process of destroying the seventh. So they write these things and announce them for us to look at, and then go about doing it. It's sort of hideous, really.
It's strange, isn't it, that after Afghanistan and Iraq and every other schmozzle, I read that book on the history of the CIA, The Legacy of Ashes, and you just look back all the way back to Vietnam and that it was all built on lies. It was all one fiasco after another. And here we are all these decades later, the same massively taxpayer-funded institutions and mechanisms are still pouring people out to be slaughtered, basically. It's just
Yeah, I agree. But you can see now end times as they're, back then the CIA had real power. Now it disputes its power with China and with Russia. And Russia's prevailed in its war against NATO. 52 countries have lined up in NATO to fight Russia using the Ukraine proxy. Um, and it has failed. But the monumentality of being of the elites in the West being willing to sacrifice an entire country, Ukraine, in order to have a go at breaking up Russia into its constituent into bits and pieces so that it has less power and so that they can plunder resources. I mean that's a monumental crime. It must be adjudicated, and the
But who would do the
adjudication
adjudication, John? Who would?
history,
No, no, I
history.
know. Oh, I know that. But what I'm
Uh,
saying is, like,
uh,
they're talking about Nuremberg trials for what happened in COVID. But Dr. Miley over here has finally been deregistered after 4 or 5 years, and one of the judges said to her, "The Nuremberg trials are not." Sorry, It's a bit early for me. Uh, are not pertinent in Australia anymore. They're inconsequential, and that's what's said in a medical board hearing. And so we're always thinking, well, who would run Nuremberg 2? Who would run the trials? The Americans, the Chinese, the Russians? And so if there is war crimes against Israel or Russia or Ukraine, or it states what country is going to run these trials? Who's going to do the prosecution?
well, it's already, the Donbass, that's in Russia, they already have a crime commission. The Russians already have a crime commission accumulating evidence and allegations. Uh, so the mechanisms are there, and
Do
they
they have the
need to
power
be.
to pull America
Well,
into court or
well,
Israel?
that they have the power to. I mean, that to be particular, uh, the Russian crime and the Donbass Crime Commission are concerned with crimes in Ukraine and in Russia, so that
Mhm.
they would have nothing to do with Israel. As far as Israel's concerned, I think if I remember correctly, under Karim Khan, the who was head prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, arrest warrants have been issued. I don't know that they've been rescinded yet uh, for Benjamin Netanyahu, Ben Gvir, and Smotrich. I've forgotten his Christian. Well, I guess they don't call their first name Christian names. His given name, I've forgotten his given name. But though they're there and they're real, also the International Court of Justice, which adjudicates crimes between states, not individuals, but states, they have done their preliminary declaration that it is a genocide, and they're in the process of going about collecting the evidence. I think the hearing will be in 2 years' time. So the processes are there, and as the United States clearly gets weaker and is no longer a superpower, um, there you can see that they can't. That all of their bases, I think there's 17, have been destroyed, which surrounded Iran, and that the technology of warfare has changed so that what the United States uses to enforce the Pax Americana is no longer sufficient to the job. So that indicates to you that matters are going to change, and people who have been put upon, for example, Iraq, uh, are going to take their revenge in whatever way they can.
I just wish Australia would stay out of the whole lot, the whole damn thing. Why are we spending hundreds of millions of dollars in Ukraine on what are those bush basher things, and particular weaponry, and elbows squeezed in time between what's his name, Boris Johnson and some famous Hollywood actor. So he gets squeezed in, and that costs the for a photo op basically, and that costs the taxpayer 400 million. I mean, why are we there? Why are we involved in Israel? Why are we shipping high-tech weaponry or components to Israel to drop bombs on Gazan children? I mean, why are we in any of this? Shouldn't we just stay out of the whole damn thing?
It's very frustrating, John. But an important aspect of your question is why are we uh, indicating that we have some sort of sovereignty? The basic question to begin exploring is, does Australia exist
Yeah.
in the sense of being sovereign? Well, it's probably we don't. Um, we've just brought in all sorts of commissions, and we're not allowed to say this, that, and the other in case it offends the sensibilities uh, of
Anyone.
Jewish residents of Australia. So the restriction of our capacity to comment uh, is
That will
ongoing
go.
and will get worse.
That goes the same though to the Muslim community. I mean, after the shooting on Bondi, our prime minister, all he did was blame right wing people, or as Elon just called them, normal people, and wouldn't even mention Islam or anything else. There's a fog of war around now. We've got Iran, Israel, and Ukraine, and because everyone feels so powerless, it's like everyone's giving up. Everyone's it's called conflict fatigue or something like that. But just to show you where I found real hope recently, I went down to Rockingham in WA, where there's all these people homeless now, all in these caravans. They got nowhere else to go, and I interviewed them. And one woman, a veteran, was living in a van, and in her late 50s, and the van needed a clutch. And I said, "Look, if I do this interview, you'll get a clutch." And in half an hour, she's got a clutch at $2,000. And what it is, I think, is when you see Israel Palestine, people go, "I don't have Netanyahu's number. I don't know what to do." Ukraine, I don't even know where Ukraine is. I don't know what to do. But when you give them something that they can do, which is helping each other, and they're in and they're in like crazy. I mean, this woman's been overwhelmed for help. And in the interview I did, she actually said, "I feel worthless. No one cares." And yet, just telling the story, and people do. So, do you think it's like getting back to community is actually the way forward? Globalization is a failure for humanity itself, a benefit for the rich, the wealthy, and the powerful. But for people, it's time to get back to community and looking after each other. What are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
well, um, I like people, so I have to agree with you. I mean, and in those 7 years that wandering the world, I don't regret any. I met many tens of thousands of really wonderful people, and in the end, as 90% of the Australian populace supported the return of Julian Assange to Australia. So
Could
Mm.
you,
that's
sorry, John,
sorry.
for people,
Yeah.
for a lot of the public, including me, basically, Julian, the last thing people have heard of Julian was when he came back to Australia. And the behaviour of the Liberals and Labor over the years is an interesting question. But can you just bring us up to date with where it is all at now? Like from him returning
I
to
is
Australia to now, what's happened?
well, Julian has, keeping uh, himself busy looking after his children and his wife and catching up on the administrative work after 15 years of neglect and, re-establishing himself in Australia. Um, so really just the ordinary but beautiful aspects of life that are sustaining to human beings. That's all,
So, what about the movement, the political movement around him? What's happened to that? Has it?
I mean, it's achieved its aims, and thence it's gone. uh, as a political movement, but it still exists as a social phenomenon. So every couple of months, the Melbourne people have a dinner together and they take over a pub, and about 50 or 60, uh, depending upon the availability, um, gather together. In Sydney, every Friday, the core group uh, meets on the steps of the Sydney Town Hall. And I think on the 8th of August, the Sydney people will get together and have a dinner uh, at one of the supporters' houses. So it exists as a social phenomenon, um, but as a political phenomenon, it's well gone.
I read
Oh,
that.
there are two residual events. So the spin-off from the assangecampaign.org.au is the Rights Project, which is a charitable institution run by Gabriel, that's Julian's brother,
Yeah.
um, and it is active in support of whistleblowers, and uh, in particular at the moment, David McBride.
Right.
So the in the Courage Foundation in America, it continues, and of course WikiLeaks continues. But as a political phenomenon, it achieved its aims. This is really rare. The only other political phenomenon to social political phenomenon to fully achieve its aims, I think, was the anti-apartheid movement back in the anti-apartheid days, which fully achieved its aims. It's really rare for a social movement to fulfill its political aims in their completeness.
That's true.
All praise to those the people of Australia who convinced a reluctant government and government institutions to do the right thing and organise the return of Julian to Australia.
I read that
But
book on.
I'm not
Oh,
sorry.
sorry.
I'm not. I wouldn't. You know. I thanked the Prime Minister and those members of Parliament. Uh, but as far as the government acting uh, out to defend the interests of Australian citizens badly done by overseas, I can give them no credit whatsoever. It is only from the pressure of the populace uh, demanding, uh, sorry, I'll rephrase that. It is the pressure of the core group of parliamentarians uh, and the work of the Australian populace that caused the government to do the right thing. It wasn't the other way around. The government, in no way, its institutions, in no way were exemplary or something that we ought to take notice of and give credence and praise to. The praise goes to the core group of parliamentarians and all of the people, activists among the Australian populace. A very fine and well motivated group of people, which give me heart, so I don't despair because I know that in essence, the Australian populace are very fine, moral people. I didn't meet any who were, well, I met a couple of nutters, but for the massive tours that we did around Australia, up and down the east coast and over to Adelaide and Perth, we only ever got support. A very
Do you
fine
think
thing.
the politicians couldn't help because, like you said, Australia doesn't exist anymore? They're not actually our politicians. They're like our caretakers, but they're actually serving someone else, and that's why they're incapable of helping. Do you think that's the
Yeah,
reason, or
so,
what was the other reason that they couldn't help? Because
well,
if he weren't in
institution,
politics, it was easy. Let him go.
institutions have their relationship. So, you have five eyes, which is a singularity. So, in some circumstances, the preservation of the Five Eyes relationship between the secret services is more important than immediate Australian interests. Yeah, so
So
that
people who don't know the Five Eyes, you should explain what the Five Eyes is. A lot of people don't follow this closely.
if the Five Eyes is the Australian Secret Services, the New Zealand Secret Services, the UK Secret Services, Canadian Secret Services, and American Secret Services. Principally, all of the English-speaking world gather together and exchange information. It works to the benefit of the United States, and as far as I'm concerned, no benefit to Australia, except accepting that we're in the mix, so to speak. That's the only benefit. But usually, for example, we are involved in Yemen. We've declared Ansar Allah, which is commonly known as the Houthis. The Houthis are a tribe. We've declared them a terrorist organisation as they trying to defend their little patch of land over there in Yemen. It's we just we're a digit, a little finger uh, on the American empire, and our institutions of state are well aware of their vulnerability. Yeah.
It always stunned me just how badly both Liberal and Labor, the Australian governments, as you were saying, had just ignored the whole Julian Assange issue or just turned a blind eye to the whole thing. You have an Australian citizen falsely arrested in a foreign country and no government, either Liberal or Labor, did anything about it. I think, do you think it would be unfair to say that Albo jumped on this at the end because he saw it was a populist move, a popular movement, and Julian was a popular thing to do, that he wouldn't have done it unless it was a popular move? Do you see what I mean?
Yes, well, that's his job.
Workout started.
You know,
First move, dynamic upper backstretch. One
what,
set is
what's
20
that?
seconds.
What's that sound? Is that you, John?
I don't know.
One,
No.
go.
Oh, hang. Uh,
Is that a blue bee on your
Relax your
back?
shoulders.
yes.
Workout paused.
Okay. Um,
That's
it's
great.
it's um, to answer that question, his prime minister and his job is politics to meld together the political forces in order to stabilise government and move the government towards its policies. That's his job, and he did that job pretty well in the Assange matter. So he had no other. If you, from another point of view, we were the Assange movement. We were in symbiotic engagement with the government of Australia. As we made political space, the Australian government took up that political space. And as we made more political space, the Australian government moved into that space till eventually they had sufficient political force to go to the United States and say, we want this matter solved. How will we go about it? And ask their two highest ranking diplomatic officers, that is Stephen Smith, High Commissioner in London, and at that time, what's his name? Kevin Rudd, who was ambassador to the United States, to charge them with solving the matter. So the Prime Minister acted within the political circumstances as his job requires. He's not a priest, or he's not a philosopher of, uh, you know, how to behave. He's a politician that we appoint to solve the political problems with the interests of Australia in mind. Now, you can say with a politician like Anthony Albanese, who's cautious and only moves to the extent to the extent of the political space that him and his advisors can perceive, that he is not really uh, a leader you would want in these times. I don't want to criticise Anthony, any politician at all. What I would hope we all criticise and firmly criticise is their bloody policies. These policies, how do we get to the state where they spend 380 billion or whatever it is dollars on submarines, which are never going to be delivered? The United States can't make its own submarine. The United States shipyards can't fulfill their own orders, let alone our orders. And finally, the cherry on the top is as a platform for weapons, the weapons are obsolete. They're completely obsolete. I mean, the Russia and China, who are our proposed competitors, produce 8 Yasm class submarines, which are as good as the Virginia class or slightly better, with as a platform for weapons that are up to the minute and we'll never see their like in 10 years in America and Australia. That they're $1 billion each. We're paying. I mean, the whole thing is absurd. There's no evaluation, strategic evaluation, that fits our circumstances, except that this one, we are surrounded by oceans, 7 of them, some of them vast, like the Great Southern Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. And as an island nation, it's pursuant upon us to have means of defending ourselves and deterring others. And submarines seem to fit the strategic bill. But as for what they actually went about doing, it's greater than a scandal. It's a mistake. And when you make a mistake as a nation, it costs you.
Well, we're
Yeah.
broke, so we've made lots of mistakes. We owe $1 trillion or something. Trillion. Sorry, John. What were we going to say, John?
I just think Paul Keating got it right when he said it was the worst deal ever. Like, you might not always
Yeah.
agree with Paul Keating, but he was right on that one. Worst deal ever.
Oh, his courage and his capacity to spin a sentence which fits and demolishes the opponent is just wonderful. I mean, to the man, it was a real gift. I didn't like his economic policies. I thought they were wrong. And we now exist and live in the wreckage that
Yeah, that's right.
neoliberalism brought to us.
Can
He
I ask
hated
John?
journalists and he hated us.
We hear all about facts and stuff, but and I have to admit, I'm really bored with facts because I don't even know which facts to believe anymore. In fact, most of us now, a lot of people on this planet now doom scroll, so they're just sitting on their phones. So the phone is actually a periscope to the world. And the thing is, AI is so good now, you simply do not know what to believe anymore. You just can't. And it's still progressing. So reality through these periscopes, who knows what it is? So that we're just living in this fog. And so facts now are like, but you got not Australian, you didn't sort of have much to do with Julian early on. then you came back together with him, and well, united as a father, and were a part of WikiLeaks. When you were starting WikiLeaks, what were the goals of the actual thing? What were you trying, or what was, as a group, were you trying to achieve? And because
Well,
you'd had
oh,
just 2 secs, another question,
yes,
and
yes.
because you hadn't had much to do with your son, when you finally got back with him, and then he was taken away to jail, how did that actually make you feel as a father? I know you've done great work trying to get him out, but at some point that must have been extraordinarily difficult and fearful.
Oh, no, just two things. I had nothing to do with WikiLeaks.
Oh, okay.
I'm
Grok,
a
Grok says you did.
no, no, and I still have nothing to do with WikiLeaks. I'm a building designer and a
Yeah, an
builder.
architect. Yeah.
That's what I do, and that's what I like doing. I don't really, get, I don't really get much enjoyment uh, being a journalist. Well, not that
So
I'd
you
ever
just
have done.
signed over the domain. That was your participation.
Yeah, yeah. Just Julian put the domain name, domain in my name because of, I imagine, somebody trustworthy was necessary. Um, so yeah, that's
That's all
the
right.
extent. Yeah, and
Yeah.
the second part of your question is, you know, in my family, it's sort of different. You choose your course and you get support for your choice. And that's how everybody approaches. You've if Gabrielle running the information rights project, um, he has to uh, mm, maybe embarrass some of the friendships he's made amongst parliamentarians uh, and bureaucrats. Well, that's the course he's chosen. The same with Julian. He took took upon himself uh, the responsibility to bring information, proven information, documented information to the public, uh, and that was the course he chose. So uh, we just give support to each other. Don't I have no criticism. I
Oh, I'm
can't
not
even
expecting you to
imagine.
criticize him or judge him, but how does it feel? I mean,
Oh, it just
my son
feels
went
like
to jail for, and I didn't know when he was going to get out or maybe even killed in there. And I know that's a driving force, but it's an interesting relationship where I don't know how. Well, see, the fog of war is perfect. I did a grok this morning just to questions I
yes.
hadn't asked you, and it said, "Oh, he reunited with Julian, and they were working together, hand in fist, on basically setting up WikiLeaks." And so everything's, you just don't know what to believe anymore. It's a really strange
Well,
world
I
to
mean,
live in.
I wouldn't use Grok myself. I mean, anything to do with uh, um the the oligarchs of the United States, particularly Elon Musk, who's a really skilled uh, publicist. All praise to him for SpaceX. That seems to be a pretty good thing, but he's a government contractor. I don't take any notice of those. If you wrote a book and sent it to me and I read it, I take notice of that. I take notice of the fact that you did it, that you rang me up and said, "What's your address?" The fact that you actually did that, fulfilled what you said you were going to do, and the book has the quality of the work that you continue doing. So that's sufficient for me. The same with Julian.
Is that a
You
review?
know,
Is that a review? I think he's talking
the
about Goodbye
same
Road, John. John, actually, Goodbye Road wouldn't exist without John Stapleton. He was just keep harassing me to put the pieces into.
to get
And then
to
when I had
get
the
it
heart attack,
done.
he was like, "Do it now, now."
Yes, don't
Just
leave
in
it
case you had a
another
bad
minute.
go of
Yeah, then he had a heart attack, and it seemed very urgent all of a sudden.
yeah, he's like, yeah, look, how's your heart attack go? Do the book, do the book. Yeah.
Yes,
I'm really
John
chuffed.
ringing it.
I'm really chuffed that you read it, John.
Well,
That's really special.
no, the work that, yeah, this is that's the coal face. And one of the things about being an Australian that's important to recognise is that we understand how power affects us, but we have no understanding of how to issue power. We
Yeah.
have so we're always putting ourselves in a position which you can call the frog's eye view. We're always looking up to see our position as to the distribution of power in the world.
Have
That's
we
Which is
learnt,
in,
well.
huh?
Sorry,
Sorry?
John. You were
sorry,
saying.
John, have we learnt anything out of the whole Julian Assange episode? If another Julian came along, say next year, and also leaked lots of information that the governments of the world didn't want out there, would the Australian government behave any better to him? Would they offer support? Would they get him out of, would they behave in a better way than they have? Have we learned anything?
No, as a polity, we have learned a lot. Yeah, I mean, we have, guys like Michael West and his gang who churn it out every week, and there are many of them. They're not in the United States, of course. The alt media is dynamic. Well, it's beyond dynamic. It's like effervescing. Um, so yeah, we've learnt a lot, but our institutions of state are shitting themselves because the position of Australia in the world, in relation. I mean, we're despised everywhere. We're despised as tourists because we're loudmouth, loutish. We get pissed and stagger around the place, and our older men go over to Southeast Asia and buy their women. Um, you know, and politically, geopolitically, uh, we're unreliable, and we pretend to be distinct rather than part of Australasia, and we suck up to the United States, and we have our give money, give precious money to Ukraine, and see more people murdered there in Yemen. I think we're in 12 countries, so we're despised. Um, and so that with the waning of geopolitical power of the United States and its interests, the UK, which is sort of hopeless, it's gone, it's dead as. Then our institutions of state are looking around at how can we solve these problems? Um, will we solve the problems? Um,
Silence the critics.
sorry?
Silence the
Silence the
critics. The
critics.
problem goes away.
Yeah.
There is no
No,
problem.
John, can I ask, can I ask you another question, John?
John, the power's there, and it's waning, and other powers are growing up. You can't just silence the critics. If you're responsible for Australia, and you're in the cabinet office, or Department of Prime Minister, or defence. The defence, for example, looking at all their American weapons and seeing that the procurement of those weapons is delayed because you have competitors in the EU buying them. You look at these weapons and they're no fucking good. Excuse my French. They don't stand up against the weapons that the Russians are using. So these are real problems that power has got to address to preserve itself and to preserve its foundations. Its foundations are Australia. And these are really great problems that these people are looking at. They also understand that nobody likes us. So as power wanes and changes its sources and change, and as the character of those sources change, changes, the character of the American empire is so different from the character of the Chinese or the Russian empires or
Well, we
states.
have
I mean, these are worthy discussions. What are they going to do? We have no industry. How are we going to look after ourselves? You know, if we're despised, how can we negotiate in world forums if we seem to be untrustworthy and can't keep our word because they'll get a phone call from Tel Aviv and have to change their mind? These are important things, and this is what we're charged properly as citizens to adjudicate upon and discuss amongst ourselves. In the olden days, when you and I were kids, we had the universities and the ferment of ideas and the sifting of ideas and the testing of ideas for their quality and appropriateness was done through universities. Well, now the universities are just corporations and management and degree mills. They're no longer utilize and call upon the wit and intelligence of our youth, and no longer call upon the experience and learning of the teachers. So where does the information come from? Well, it comes from think tanks who represent corporate interests.
yeah, that's
So
right.
these are things that we can,
Corporations, isn't it?
as critics, and thinkers and writers, this is our job to address
Yeah.
these things.
Well, can I
Not our
first off?
job to not job to wonder, oh, it's the end of the world or there's too many
Yeah,
facts or you know, you like in your book, you use the experience, you use a closure, bringing a closure to a time, uh, uh, which is the sort of, the book has a nostalgic element, uh, and not hoping for the re-emergence of something that's gone, but for to build upon what is now, and that
yeah,
is that the power in the world has gone to Southeast Asia. We live in Southeast Asia, so we must say, for example, you're in Perth now. Perth now is the most strategic part of Australia. Melbourne is a waste of time. It has no industry and it has no strategic importance to Australia. Perth has right up to
Port Hedland,
Dar-
basically, the big port.
Darwin. I mean, Port Hedland produces 9% of Australia's revenue. Just
Yeah,
one port, 19,000 people. But what I mean by strategic is that it sits on the Indian Ocean where all of the world's commerce travels across. Not all, but a majority of the world's commerce. So you can see, you can go Saudi Arabian Peninsula, Horn of Africa, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, China, Thailand. Anyway, you know them all. Malaysia.
can
Go
I just
on,
interrupt this thing?
please,
Like
please.
today we're talking a lot about Israel, Ukraine, and stuff like this. But at what point do Australians have the right to stop giving a fuck about the rest of the world and concentrate on themselves? Because not only am I interviewing all these new homeless people now who don't see any future for themselves. Yesterday, I was in a supermarket and I always get in the line where you get served by a human being. I actually have this lovely thing. My dad taught me to it, and he's your age, or he's 88. And if they don't have enough people serving, my father has been quiet all his life. Calls out, "Where's a human being to serve me?" And they They get one for it. And I do the same now. I say, "Where's a human to serve those humans who want to be served by a human?" And the whole thing freaks out. And but I was talking to this woman who she's in like mid 20s, late 20s, and she's pregnant with her first child. And she was talking about the cost of living. And her husband works for FIFO, but he works in a way that he's literally always away. She hardly ever sees him because that's the only way they can survive. And I said, "Are you worried about how you're going to feed your child in the future?" And she said, "I'm worried how I'm going to feed myself today." And so at
Oh,
what
dear.
point, we see our government just giving millions, millions, millions here, and we all can talk about Israel and this, but Australia is in serious trouble. That's what I see on the road everywhere. Businesses going under. I mean, I even meet Indians. Like when you said we're not liked, oh, we might not be liked, but there's 3,600 people turning up a day, so someone likes us, and we're sort of collapsing. But it feels engineered because whenever I speak to these people, I go, "We're sitting on all this mineral wealth, we have all this land, we have no one can eat meat, yet there's cows everywhere. This is being engineered. We are being economically destroyed. And I think we have a right to put all our energy into defending our um, our country from whatever's trying to pillage us, which seems to be corporations, and do it now. Because
Yeah,
otherwise, I don't see how these hordes of homeless people, and they're all white. I know not to say people aren't say that, but there's a sprinkling of Aborigines, a few Maoris, and the rest of these towns, they're all white and all taxpayers all their lives. These people aren't suddenly going to turn around tomorrow and buy their businesses back. We're almost in like a dodoisticality event, a dodo event in a way. And no one's talking about it. No one does anything. Everyone's just head down, like, "Oh, what can we do? What can we do?" When do we have the right that our intellectuals, our artists like yourself, actually turn your lenses round and start saving our country so it can become a beacon of hope for the rest of the world in the future? Because the
Yeah,
politicians aren't going to do it, the CEOs aren't going to do it. It's only the people. The only hope lies with the people, and people like you, John, who can motivate people to change.
well, look, I got, your description of the circumstances is political social perfection. Um,
Oh, wow.
100% agree with you. This is the wreckage of 40 years of neoliberalism,
Yeah.
of selling public assets to corporations. Well, years ago, I went to Anthony Albanese's office. He was the leader of the opposition, and I spent 10 minutes or 9 minutes there, and I had to be escorted out by of the building as it is required in Parliament. And his chief of staff said, "Well, to me, Anthony's a big vision man." Anyway, I didn't say anything. Um, uh, he said that we have uh, designed the corridors and the legislation for those corridors for high-speed rail on the East Coast. Okay, I thought, oh, that's a good thing, because
Yeah.
in the previous government, and also, when you start on those things, you bring engineering skills and so on and so forth, and you remake industry. So I thought to myself, well, that's pretty super. Anthony's on the ball. Um, he'd been in now forever and a day, and you know nothing mentioned. So
No.
you think to yourself, well, why can't they solve this problem, build a railway, and at the same time reintroduce industry to Australia? Well, the answer is that the with neoliberalism, all of the elements are owned by corporations. Um, and the corporations influence government policy. So the government can't do anything. It's stuck. It, the Macquarie Bank owns the airport down here in Melbourne, and the same in Sydney. Uh, the airlines are, anyway. you understand the integration of interests which prevent the establishment of high speed rail. Well, that's the same for that. The cause of that is neoliberal uh, distribution of public assets into corporate hands and corporate influence. So, in representative government, the most vulnerable part of representative government is the individual parliamentarian. You know, he can be pressured and with donations and all that sort of thing. So they bind themselves into parliamentary parties like the Labor Party and so on, in order to protect each other from their vulnerable circumstances as an individual. Well, that means that a corporation only has to approach the offices of the Labor Party. Well, now, the unionism has now around about 12%. When I was in the union, I was in the BLF back in 73, uh, it was about 50%. Well, these are problems that, that we are called upon to solve. Unions, brought to us all of the elements, the social elements of the greening of Australia, particularly the biggest labourers' union in in Sydney. Everything that the 40-hour week, superannuation, uh, compensation if you get injured. So once you get rid of working people's organisations, then everybody becomes vulnerable
Yeah.
to. Yeah.
Hmm. They say
Sorry.
AI is going to destroy 50% of all jobs in Australia by 2030. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but quite possibly you could eradicate the entire government and put an AI in there, probably do a better job.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, well, I was at dinner last night. They were all talking about, AI going to finish this and finish that and so on and so forth. I, uh, I don't go much on phobias. I'm sort of more.
I'm not so convinced now because AI costs a lot more money than humans. That's the lesson at the moment. So and I think humans might rise up, but I think all of us have to go. I've got to go. Cal's
yeah, a
coming
bit
back.
Yeah,
worried about this
yeah,
one.
yeah,
Yeah,
And then
all
yeah.
right.
we'd love to have you
Thank
back
you.
on. But John's got one question to finish for
Yes,
you for
yes.
John. I love it. I love it.
Uh,
Well, I always wondered why Julian Assange, or how he came to be so uncannily intelligent, because he's like freakily intelligent, Julian,
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
and he really is. And and so intelligence is an inherited trait according to all the latest research. So
That's skip a
now
generation,
I
man.
know where it came from, John. It came from you.
uh, no, 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 John.
It's
No,
privilege
it's
to
a
have met you.
we can't say that, John. It came from his mummy. That's a,
Ah, I mean,
Can you lean forward for a sec, John? I want to get a picture of that blue bee. Can you just lean forward for a sec? I've just got to get you here.
that it?
the what?
I want to get a picture of the blue bee on John's head. I'm trying to get him closer. Hold on. There, stay there. I'm just going to do a print screen. Everybody smile.
Okay.
The bee is
Uh,
great. Yeah, look, there's the blue bee we're pushing it too. I don't know if it's the same thing, but the blue native bee, the blue banded bee, doesn't live in a hive, doesn't follow a queen, and but still wants to pollinate flowers. So wants to participate in society, but it wants to think for itself. This is what I love about the blue banded bee. You know,
Uh,
symbol of something good.
hmm.
Anyway, yeah, the quiz show will be on tomorrow night. So the quiz show will be on tomorrow night. Roger Hodgkinson is coming on tonight, or we recorded it's going on. The quiz show will be on tonight. Peter McCulloch is coming on next week. But the quiz show, what we're going to do, Fauci wouldn't answer the questions. So we're going to ask the questions of the audience, and we're going to see what you think Fauci should have actually said. So that's going to be the quiz show for tomorrow. What Anthony should have said. so so we'll go from
Great.
there. But anyway, John, thanks for coming on. Thanks for coming on
Yeah.
too, John. And
Yeah.
we're going to go out with this song. This is AI. Now, Kelly Stevenson, my partner, if you can just spare a few minutes before you go, John, she wrote the first poem in her life the other night. And she'd never written a poem in her life. And I threw it into AI. This was the first thing that came out. I think this shows how artistically we're in a new realm. And if we embrace the tools of AI, we could do something incredible. Listen to this song. And all I did was get AI. I nicked all these AI videos off Grok and put it together with that. Have a listen to this.
When next we meet, our eyes shall feast, and bodies touch, your breath on mine. I'll melt deep into you and be your luck, just like the tide coming in to feast. It drifts away, never gone, for you are always my home, just as the moon imbues my heart full and bright. Ebb and flow,
My girl wrote this.
dead of night, our stars inside. We find the way home to feel our divine souls entwined. When next we meet, our eyes shall feast, and bodies touch, your breath on mine. I'll melt deep into you and be your love, just like the tide coming
Hey, Adrian.
into feet.
I'll tell you something really freaky before you go. This here, that was a photo, and AI has actually so the photo was like that, and AI all that blinking. Yeah, we should have a show about reality because reality is changing. Anyway, see you tonight, guys. It'll be recorded, but we'll be the comments will be going up. But you're gonna laugh your box off. It was a great show. And all right, I'll take care, everybody. See ya. Oh, and thanks for sharing the homeless thing. That's gone off. It's really gorgeous. Take care.